Good evening. I'm John Allen Namu. At KTN, we have covered the conflict in Somalia extensively, and tonight we continue to do so in our coverage by focusing on two questions being asked about this country. What is Kenya's and the African Union's troop contingent currently fighting in Somalia's exit plan? And what model of governance can finally bring peace to the conflict-torn nation? In this program, we will take a look at the state of the war in central and southern Somalia, but we'll also put a spotlight on Somaliland, the peaceful region to the north that has been independent since the 90s but is yet to receive international recognition. Could it be the model that the rest of Somalia needs? The emergence of the Al-Shabaab in 2006 didn't help the situation in Somalia, a nation that has faced conflict now for almost a quarter of a century. In 2007, an AMISOM peacekeeping mission was sent to Somalia to help its fledgling government rule safely. AMISOM's mandate has since changed, and they now can and have engaged the Al-Shabaab on the battlefield, often winning crucial victories. Kenya is now part of AMISOM after initially crossing into Somalia in 2011 in an operation that the government said was aimed at defending the country's national interest. That, though, has had repercussions inside Kenya. Numerous bombings and attacks on Kenyan soil, including the Westgate attack in which 67 people lost their lives, as well as today's attacks, have made Kenyans ask the question, when will Kenyan troops leave Somalia? Walking through Mogadishu is like walking through both a dream and a nightmare because you see both of its pasts. You see the past of a glorious country just on the brink of takeoff to become one of Africa's greatest nations, a country with the longest coastline in Africa. But if you look around you, you also see a past that is more famous or infamous to the world, a past filled with bullet holes, rubble, and ruin. But if you look beyond the ruin, you can see glances of what Somalia could be again. The vista of a greening farm may not seem like much to a peaceful country, but ask a person who has known war for 23 years and he'll tell you this is a powerful image. Enough peace to sell his tomatoes to other markets. AMISOM's presence here in Khorole in Lower Shabelle is appreciated. As a debate on what Kenya's exit strategy from Somalia takes root, one of the items on the checklist, a dependable supply of food, is one of them. The region in which AMISOM's Kenyan troops are stationed, the Juba region, is far more fertile than Khorole and could be the source of even more positive imagery. But that hasn't happened yet.
In the next phase of our operations, we'll be able to liberate these areas and open them for governance and the administration. It is good to be noted that Juba Valley particularly is a breadbasket of the region and therefore must be liberated so that the people can get what will support their lives in the valley.
Kenya has yet to secure the Juba Valley, it appears, because of troop numbers. The gains that Kenya made in 2012 were in no small part owed to the fact that at the time, Kenya had 4,562 troops in Somalia. With its rotation of troops out of the country, Kenyan troops now stand at 3,664, almost an entire battalion or 1,000 troops fewer. Ironically, this is the case even as AMISOM's overall troop numbers have swollen by about 6,000.
Fighting Al-Shabaab is not about forces only. Fighting Al-Shabaab need a multi-sectoral approach. We are talking of the military, political, socio and economic issues that must be addressed in order to beat Al-Shabaab.
On the score of Somalia's politics, Kenya's position seems more precarious than it should be. When Kenya took command of Kismayu in late September 2012, it did so with the support of the Raskamboni Brigade, headed by Ahmed Islam Madobe. This helped Kenya choke the Al-Shabaab's economic lifeline from charcoal revenues, another key objective that Kenyan troops, by many accounts, need to keep achieving. But its continued support from Adobe caused disquiet in the relatively cosmopolitan Juba region, where it began to look like Kenya was playing favorites with a man who once supported Hizbul Islam, an organization that was at one time in league with the Al-Shabaab.
Many people of Somalia, they perceive Kenyans as occupying forces. The longer they stay, the longer they see as occupying forces.
But support for regional governments is an argument that some think could work.
Kenya should be supporting, as a policy, the establishment of viable semi-autonomous states everywhere in Somalia. Kenya should be advocating recognition of Somaliland. The West, we continue to have these conferences where discussions are held as to should it be a federal state, a confederation. This is a sterile argument. 23 years after the last central government existed, more or less, the Somali people are independently setting up little states.
The danger with that is that it plays to more tribal divisions in Somalia, something that the Al-Shabaab can exploit. The Al-Shabaab does not draw its support from any one particular clan in Somalia above the other. Militarily, a lot of Somalia has now been liberated by AMISOM's troops, with Kenya leading that charge in Jubaland. But, as stated by Brigadier Raria, troops alone may not win the war. The gains that make sense to the daily lives of Somalis may likely be one of the routes to a favorable end for AMISOM, whose engagement cannot be indefinite. As US President Barack Obama said in reference to the drawdown of troops in Iraq and Afghanistan,
"Our systematic effort to dismantle terrorist organizations must continue. But this war, like all wars, must end."
the conflict in Somalia is definitely a complicated one. But more than that is this question. What kind of system should Kenya and the region encourage Somalia to adopt in order to keep it stable once troops from the region withdraw?
Welcome to Hargeisa, the capital city of Somaliland region that is situated in the north of modern Somalia. The city's airport is busy day in, day out, handling both international and local flights. A direct flight from Nairobi takes about 2 hours. Streets are busy. You'd think you're in some corner of Nairobi. Markets are abuzz with activity too. And you'll not miss the Kenyan connection. Kenyan public universities, for instance, have already forged partnerships with local universities like Golis University. Some have full-fledged branches here like the Mount Kenya University. The reconstruction here is well and truly underway amid a booming livestock industry. Banks are operating normally against a backdrop of the fact that the Somaliland currency is stronger than the currency of central and southern Somalia. Yet the irony is that Somaliland is an isolated region. Diplomatically speaking, it is not recognized as a sovereign state by any nation. The region does not want to be linked at all with the Somalia you know and has been clamoring for recognition as a sovereign state since declared itself independent from Somalia in 1991.
We share Kenya a lot of tradition and background. Both Kenya and Somaliland have been a former British colony. We have adopted a British system of administration.
Somaliland, which became independent in 1960, was a British colony while Italians colonized central and southern Somalia.
When we got independence, after 5 days, Somaliland government the whole government went to Mogadishu and they united. We got independence 26 June. They went to Mogadishu to unite with their brothers in the south. It went okay for a while. But even after 1.5 years, we felt that the south have 100% dominated the north. They took everything. They took the president, they took the capital, they took the prime minister, they took the commander of the armed forces, they took the commander of the police, they took everything. And they gave us 4 ministers instead of out of 14 ministers.
Then came civil war, with the most difficult period being the military regime of Siad Barre.
When the civil war took place, the northerns, which are Somaliland now, they have reconciled. They had some problems between them, the tribes, but they reconciled and they settled their problems and they reclaimed their independence. While the south, which is Somalia now, they kept fighting between themselves and destroying every system that was even existing.
After the collapse of the central government in 1991, Somaliland declared independence from the rest of Somalia on 18th May of the same year.
And since then, we have had a positive experience of our independence. Democracy, stability, peace, unlike Somalia, unfortunately, where you don't have stability and democracy and peace.
So Somaliland considers itself to be different, to be more stable than the South, and to have systems in place that give it relative peace. It has conducted democratic elections since 1991. Its current president is Ahmed Mahmoud Mohammed. It wants to be recognized so that it can be a model for stability in the region.
I'm sure we're not that far from getting recognition. There's a lot of positive signs we are getting from Africa, from our region, from Europe, from America, which all shows us the right direction. And I think we are expecting a full-blown recognition sooner rather than later.
Mudai, a diplomacy scholar with the University of Nairobi, says recognizing Somaliland is likely to be met with stiff resistance from Mogadishu.
Internally, there are regional members who are suspected that they want to dismember Somalia and have it into smaller portions that cannot challenge them.
Kenya has a diplomatic mission in Somalia, but the office operates from Nairobi. Somaliland, on the other hand, is not totally on its own. The region has trade ties with governments like Ethiopia. Several international and humanitarian organizations are operating in Hargeisa, and Kenya is set to follow suit.
We have a liaison office in Kenya. In fact, we have had that office for quite some time now. But I understand the Kenyan government has just made a decision to open up a new liaison office here in Hargeisa, which is a good news. And hopefully that liaison office will help us to get an easy access to visas, Kenyan visas, but also have a positive impact on the trade between the two countries.
Whatever kind of office they open, even if it is clerical, diplomatically the message is we can engage, we can do business together without bothering with the other parts. But Mogadishu feels that if you have to engage with any part of Somalia, it must be through the federal government, because the federal government still considers itself to be the overall government of the whole of Somalia.
We are in a dilemma we cannot recognize, but we have now agreed that we are going to open a liaison office in Hargeisa, which we have already budgeted for, and I think by this time somebody must have been posted. And also Garowe in Puntland, we are posting somebody. And even in Kismayu, where our troops are, we have opened one.
Garowe is the capital city of the semi-autonomous region of Puntland that neighbors Somaliland in the north, while Kismayo is the hub of the southern region of Jubaland that is equally semi-autonomous. Unlike Somaliland, both Jubaland and Puntland have no problem being part of the federal government of Somalia. The current president of Puntland, Abdiweli Mohamed Ali, took over power in December 2013.
As far as I know, the federal government has 4 prerogatives exclusively for the federal government, which are the defense, foreign policy, immigration and naturalization, and the monetary policy. Other than that, the rest are shared responsibility and shared power.
Puntland's condition is that the central government should respect the responsibilities of regional governments.
A system based on mutual trust and mutual, respect. So we are not seceding, like Somaliland claimed. We are not for secession. We are for a federal, united Somalia. That's what Puntland stands for.
Somaliland, on the other hand, says it has a clear roadmap to determine its own destiny.
We are not opening, as they call, it's a Pandora's box in Africa by getting our recognition. We have a history of independence. This is not a new country. This is a country that has existed before as an independent state, joined with Somalia at some point, and now come off from that union. It's not different from Senegal and Gambia that have joined at one point and then come off from each other at a later stage.
The question is, will Kenya relate with Somaliland just for trade reasons, or will this eventually extend to diplomatic and political levels?
We have so many Kenyans who are working there in NGO world, in education sector and in health sector, and some of them are business people. We need to give them services. Also, we need those Somalis in that different parts of Somalia who cannot come to Mogadishu to get some also consular services.
And this leads to the question of how Kenya's ties with Somaliland would affect the war against terror.
This would create tensions between Kenya and Mogadishu, diplomatic tensions, and if already Mogadishu suspects Kenya, which for a long time has played a neutral position in terms of even intervention in Somalia, that suspicion and tension already means that Kenya is not trusted, and because Kenya is not trusted, so it means that they will not be cooperating with Kenya.
In the meantime, the President of the Federal Republic of Somalia, Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud, is on record as expressing confidence that his government has made great strides in putting structures in place for a stable Somalia.
Somali people are now more hopeful than ever before, and the relative stability of the security that are in place now is again another fundamental factor that facilitated the rebuilding and the reconstruction and the return of the people from the diaspora.
And to direct us, more so to protect us against our known enemy.
There are about 20,000 foreign troops in Somalia, with Kenya's force comprising about 5,000. All in central and southern Somalia, none in northern Somalia. So different from the south, feeling more stable and peaceful, yet its bid to be recognized falling on deaf ears in the international community. That is the story of Somaliland, that is already forging trade links with a considerable number of countries, including Kenya, amid the dilemma: should it be recognized as a sovereign nation, and what impact will that have on the war against terror? The wait goes on.
The endgame in Somalia is one with more perspectives than can be spoken about in one day. But we'll continue to keep a close watch of events as they unfold there and dissect what those events mean to Kenya and to the region. This has been a special broadcast on the conflict in Somalia, Endgame Somalia. I'm John Alanamu. Good night and stay with KTN.